investigation. We're learning from Kansas City Fire now, and this is preliminary information and subject to change, but Kansas City Fire is telling ABC News 1 person is dead, 9 others are injured, for a total of 10 people that apparently have been shot. We're still assessing whether all of them were shot or whether they were injured in some other way. But 1 dead, 9 injured, and among the injured, 5 are said to be serious injuries and 3 critical.
And again, that information just coming in from Kansas City Fire?
From Kansas City Fire, and it's preliminary information as we work to learn more. But Kansas City Police had been on scene in force for this victory parade for the Kansas City Chiefs as they celebrated their Super Bowl. They were on scene and were able to take 2 armed people into custody very quickly right after these shots were fired near Union Station, the historic century-old train station in Kansas City. And now, according to Kansas City Fire, preliminarily, 1 person dead, 9 others injured.
And of course, far too soon to say whether this was at all connected to the celebration itself or whether this was other activity among other people at the tail end of this.
That's right. One of the key questions will be, was this somehow due to an agenda, a political or social agenda, or was this the result of some kind of criminal activity? And that may be where police are leaning at this point, but they haven't said for sure. But David, how many times in advance of big mass gatherings like this have you and I talked about what the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI has said, that given the environment in the country right now, the potential for something has always been there, but police in Kansas City have not said why these shots were fired just yet.
Stick with us here. Our investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky. The moment you have more there, Aaron, just flag me here. In the meantime, you could actually hear the gunfire, see the crowd suddenly rushing for safety during this moment of gunfire. You're going to see images now from our ABC affiliate, KMBC. Take a look. You could hear the gnat sound there of the gunfire as it was erupting, the crowd moving to get out of the area. The Kansas City Chiefs were actually being escorted off the stage when those shots were fired. People obviously had already begun to head home. Police say several victims again struck. Initial reports 8 to 10 injured, and as Aaron Katersky just reported, a preliminary report coming in from Kansas City Fire that up to 1 person could be dead from this. And of course, these are early details coming in from the fire department. We will have much more as the afternoon progresses here. Authorities say 2 people have been taken into custody. Both were armed. I want to bring in Alex Perez, who was on the scene to report on the parade itself, the welcome home party for the Kansas City Chiefs, and now, of course, this. Alex, can you describe the scene for us?
Well, David, it started as a joyous celebration and ended in tragedy. There were literally thousands of people in this field behind me here. Those 3 arches you can see there over my shoulder, that's Union Station. The stage was set up right in front of Union Station. The players were addressing the crowd from that stage. The event, the rally, had just ended. It was wrapping up. The players were starting to make their way off of the stage, and that's when that gunfire erupted. And David, as you might imagine, when there are thousands of people in a crowd close together and they hear gunfire, immediately there's panic and there's chaos. And there were hundreds of people that we saw running out of the area, trying to get somewhere safe. We understand from the Kansas City Police Department, this is still an active situation. They're trying to figure out what exactly unfolded here. Just a few seconds ago, David, we saw what looked like a SWAT team sort of run into the garage building that is behind Union Station here. So authorities are still working to figure out what exactly happened here. Now, when that gunfire erupted, when the crowd began to rush out of the area, we immediately began to hear sirens. We heard ambulance sirens. We heard police, law enforcement sirens. And those officers, those members of law enforcement began to immediately flood the area. David, we know from the mayor here that there were already 600 police officers deployed to the parade route and to watch the area. They were working with 24 different law enforcement agencies and, of course, their federal partners as well to make sure that this was a safe event. And it appeared to be safe up until the very end. And as we know now, David, as Aaron reported there, at least 1 dead and 8 to 10 injured here on the scene, David. And while the crowd has dispersed, still a number of police officers remain on the scene trying to assess what's going on. And we even still see some ambulances here on the scene, David.
Of course, we, again, I can't underscore enough that those preliminary details coming in from Kansas City Fire at this point involving the number of people potentially shot here. Alex Perez describing the scene for us. Alex, our thanks to you. We're told at this hour that a White House official telling ABC News they are closely monitoring the shooting, of course, at the end of the Super Bowl parade. Federal law enforcement officials are on the scene to aid local officials there, something that Aaron had told us earlier, and in fact likely in place just because of the size and scope of this event. You can see the pictures there of the crowd. These were the pictures coming in from KMBC, our ABC station, moments after the gunfire. You can see the sheer size of the crowd that had gathered for the Super Bowl champs. I want to bring in one last person here before we turn you over to your local news here in the East, and then the rest of the country, of course, will have more coming up here on World News Tonight. Pierre Thomas is our Chief Justice Correspondent. Pierre, what are you learning from federal sources at this hour?
Well, I spoke to a key federal source, David, who said there is no information so far coming from the scene suggesting terrorism or some kind of political act, that it may, again, early in the investigation appear to be something criminal, David. Typically, in a situation like this, you'll have law enforcement at the federal level get a quick sense if there's anything suggesting terrorism or some kind of political event. Obviously, the source said they're just very concerned that guns are so ubiquitous, so anytime you have a crowd that loud, large and loud, you could have a situation like this, David. The Justice Department, the White House, ATF, other agencies trying to get information from the scene because they need to make sure that this was a contained event. Obviously, very concerned either way, David.
Pierre Thomas, our thanks to you again. Multiple people shot at the tail end of the Super Bowl victory celebration in Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs were just being escorted off the stage. This was west of Union Station near a parking garage there. Unclear if it was connected in any way to the celebration, the rally itself, but obviously federal and local authorities were concerned given the sheer size of this crowd that had gathered and the security threat in this country, the heightened temperature, if you will, across this nation. Our team is going to continue to work this. I know for many of you, your local news teams are standing by. Our coverage will continue. ABC News Live, abcnews.com, and I'll be back with the entire team for World News Tonight just a short time from now. I'm David Muir in New York. We'll see you then. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
You have been watching ABC Live coverage of a tragic situation at the conclusion of the Chiefs